How are you?
Hey, Nick. Good to see you, man.
Yeah. How's your day going?
Day's going well. Yeah, it's been a little bit overcast as we start to get closer to fall, but all is good here.
All right.
Ooh.
By the
Uh,
way, congratulations on your first child.
Thanks, man. It's very exciting. We're trying to get our sleep adjusted and all sorts of stuff as we get ready. So,
That's gonna be a
yeah,
challenge for you.
I know. I know. Do you have any kids yourself?
No, I haven't got a kid yet.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool. One day,
So
hopefully, you'll join the crew.
yeah. I don't think my time is that long from there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna do the introduction. Right?
Sounds good. Yeah, I'll just sort of mention that this is what we're going to use for our This Week in Crypto, but you can do your normal intro, and then I'll do the same when my turn comes in.
All right. Okay. Welcome everyone. Today is the 14th of August, 26. I'm Nick from Equities Tracker, and I will be speaking with Brian, the head of content from Sentiment, about the latest crypto news and updates. Over to you, Brian.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, Nick, but your audio is a little bit fuzzy. I can't tell if it's just because of maybe what's coming in on my end, but just for the sake of the recording, maybe you should check your settings to be safe.
Yep. Hey, thanks for the heads up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something doesn't feel. How's the audio now?
Much better. Yeah. Whatever
Much
you
better?
just did, it changed it. Yep.
All right. That's great.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll repeat the.
Yeah. Feel free to restart.
All right. Welcome everyone. Today is the 14th of August, 26. I am Nick from Equities Tracker, and I'll be speaking with Brian, the head of content from Sentiment, about the latest crypto news and updates. Over to you, Brian.
Yeah, Nick, great to be here with you. It's exciting to talk about markets here in mid-August when I think for a lot of people, it feels like crypto is a bit dead. And I'll actually go over a few of those metrics that proves that data-wise, people are talking about crypto less and less. But for those who are watching, we're kind of doing a dual video today where Nick is doing his future-proof video with us for our monthly video, and then I'm doing This Week in Crypto. And instead of talking with Balance/Maxim, our founder and CEO, Nick and I will go over some of the pertinent metrics that are showing up on chain and social-wise on Sentiment.
All right. So I guess the first question everybody will be asking is the market bottoming out?
Yeah, I mean there are definitely some theories that are starting to bubble up about that. Either people are getting a little bit exasperated, or they're viewing all of the FUD news coming out the last couple of weeks as a sign that we have to be coming close to a bottom. And when we talk about some of the FUD news, of course, there's a few things that come to mind. The four main ones, and you can feel free to add on if you have any, Nick, but we've got the Saylor/strategy Bitcoin sell-offs. It's no longer 32 Bitcoin. These are tons and tons of Bitcoin being sold off now.
Yes.
And it is causing quite a bit of a stir because for a lot of people, for a while now, they viewed Saylor and Strategy's holdings as kind of like the house of cards that's keeping crypto at least somewhat afloat. So if he sells, we're going to crash. Now, the sell-offs happened over a week ago, and we haven't really seen any movement at all, which is quite interesting. I don't think many people anticipated that. And then, of course, we also have the Clarity Act and the not rejection of it, but the delay. What sounds like to be the rest of the year, we're not going to have any Clarity Act decisions made. And because of that long delay, that caused quite a bit of a negative reaction, and many people were expecting that to be a catalyst for sub 60K Bitcoin, which again, that hasn't happened yet. And then, of course, we've got the two wallet hacks, very different hacks, I should say. One is a hack. The other is more of a data breach. The Coldcard wallet hack, where innocent victims who are trying to be safe and hold their coins in cold storage ended up losing, in many cases, their life savings because Coldcard had an exploitable what are they called? Keys that basically were able to be guessed using AI algorithms that narrowed down the possibilities into actual guessable combinations. And well over $100 million of crypto now has been stolen thanks to that unfortunate exploit that's been discovered. And then on Trezor, just in the past 24 hours, I'm sure you saw it too, Nick. We were told by Trezor themselves that they had a data breach. Now, for those who remember, about 3-4 years ago, Ledger went through the same thing. This isn't a death sentence. It doesn't mean if you're holding your coins on Trezor, just like you did on Ledger, your coins are now at risk the way Coldcard victims were at risk. But it does mean that phishing attacks, bad actors, people who are after your money will now know your personal information and be able to contact you directly to try to potentially trick you into handing your money over to them. So I believe for Trezor, it was only people who bought in the past 90 days, but I'm pretty sure based on reactions, people don't trust that. It's just anyone with a Trezor could be at risk now of lots and lots of phishing and hacking attempts. So that's the news that's been circulating most recently that caused some FUD along with those other three topics. And now we're sitting here with Bitcoin down just slightly over the past 30 days, about 2%, still sitting at about 63.4K. You can see a lot of these fluctuations are pretty dwarfed by two huge spikes from Hex, which more than 3x'd in the past month, as well as PulseX, which did just about the same amount over the past 3 months. So mostly down over the past month or so, but there are some signs of life from specific altcoins. So Nick, what are you seeing on your side in terms of certain projects you guys are focused on? I'll of course have some Bitcoin stuff I can go over, but I'm curious if there's been a special focus.
So currently in the crypto space, especially in Malaysia, is pretty slow because as a country we are pretty conservative. So any progress in cryptocurrencies we can say it's facing some roadblocks, and the regulations are also in how do I say it? It's still trying to figure out how to proceed with more cautious because of all the latest attacks. So as they last year they came up with this sandbox mode in the financial world where we can test the potential crypto related projects to be able to achieve something. But at the same time, that was because the market was in a bull year. So this year was a little bit of a bear year.
Yep.
So we can see more of that fear kicking in. I won't say that anything is too positive. It's more like let's get this over. Let's get through this. It's more like that this year.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Of course, this is considered to be one of the down years in the 4-year cycle for those who are very bought into that theory. So this is playing out as they've expected so far. And I think you're absolutely right. It's kind of a mindset similar to someone who just says, let's stay alive, let's survive, let's stay afloat and get through this year. So we see the better performances that come in 2027.
I would like to add this as well.
Yeah.
Because we are connected with some of the crypto institutions out there and over internationally. So some of the banks, because they are facing the same thing, so they are playing a defensive strategy as well. So we can see that every channel that we go through has been quite defensive this year. So, but the good thing about that is that they shared something to us that I find it pretty interesting. Is that they say that this year's bear market, it's less. You don't see that much blood in the water. So that's very interesting because the previous bear you can see like the banks go bankrupt, FTX collapse, but this year we don't see that as much. So I think that's a pretty interesting insight.
Why do you think that is? Are there any common theories behind why there's not as much pain coming from banks this time around? Were they not as over leveraged this time?
I think that most of them are like probably because this time institutions are in, so the pain is not as bad as before. There's a cushion of trades that's that the banks are holding. So you don't see like anybody that's leveraged so heavily did not get liquidated as much as before, because I think maybe safety became a thing this cycle.
Yeah.
So it's you don't see that much blood, but I think I'm maybe too early. I'm not too sure because this is just preliminary conversations. So that's what they see so
Yeah.
far. I think we had this conversation about 2 months ago, so that's very interesting to share.
Yeah, I mean, I only mean this with a little bit of hyperbole, but we're in a stage now where maybe we're, as a collective community, that is the crypto trader and the crypto investor. I'm not one myself, but many people I know are. They don't experience as many highs and lows because collectively, the common trader and investor doesn't own as much crypto relative to how much Saylor and Strategy do. So the
Yes.
only real blood in the streets going on is coming from he and his company at the moment,
Yes.
to a significant degree compared to like 2022 and the FTX collapse that ruined so many lives. And of course, there are many, many millions of people who have lost a lot of money throughout this year, but percentage wise, we've never seen one institution holding so many of the cards at the same time.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. And, from a sentiment perspective, because we can gauge how much pain and optimism there really is in the markets right now, it does look like ever since the Coldcard wallet fiasco that happened right around the 29th and the 30th here, that's when we got this big drop in ratio of positive versus negative comments. So this red right here, this is the amount of negative commentary toward Bitcoin. And it just absolutely ballooned once they found out that, not even holding coins in cold storage is safe anymore, right?
Yep.
And then you see all these narratives start to form where there's just some people truly believe there's nowhere safe they can hold their coins. I of course, believe that's a bit of an exaggerated take. Even with this bad news about Trezor, like there's a big difference between having your keys be compromised because of a hardware malfunction versus having your personal information be leaked, which, by the way, has happened for so many different companies that aren't crypto related already. If you have a Facebook, there's a good chance your personal data has been breached one time in the last 5 to 10 years. All sorts of stuff. But my point is, it does look like the sentiment has dropped pretty significantly on average. If you look at the top left of my screen, in fact, look at the number next to that yellow line as I scroll right. I'm not seeing a single day where it gets above 1.0. It got the highest it got was Sunday, it looks like. But basically 1.0 is the even mark between bullish and bearish comments. Every day since the Coldcard wallet hacks, I should say, there have been more bearish comments per day than bullish. And that I can't recall the last time that's happened. I don't even know if it happened during the FTX collapse in 22.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a major one then.
Yeah. I mean, we could smooth it out too and just look at it on a 7-day basis, and you'll see, look at this huge plummet that just started at the end of July. I could go back like 1 year for more context. And this was actually the most negative week we have seen since our social data started. And obviously it was bound to rebound a little bit, but we're still at a much more negative point from a perception basis than we've seen in a very long time, going back to when those hacks first became public.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really deep negative ratio.
Oh yeah. But the whole point is, and this is our mantra, as you know, Nick, the prices typically go the opposite direction of the crowd's expectations. And with all this FUD, means there's probably not many retailers buying right now. And we can prove that by looking at this chart that we've checked out before. And guess what this dip was? This was exactly when the Coldcard wallet hack happened.
Wow.
And we see this huge dip that we haven't seen anytime this year in retail holdings for the first time. Now, some may say, well, that was because those retail holdings were literally hacked away. Well, I won't go over it now, but we've done enough kind of looking in the background on chain and even seeing some other data websites that have shown it's a little bit of a combination of both. Yeah, some small wallets contributed to this drop in small wallet holdings, but it was also the aftermath and the way that retail panicked and basically just got rid of all of their coins or moved them somewhere else that caused this much larger drop to occur. And when things finally normalized around 8-9 days ago, it's been flat ever since. It's not like they've resumed their accumulation. And things were starting to look good on the 10 to 10K BTC wallet side. Those are like the key stakeholders that really kind of correlate with the way prices move. So they started to move up pretty significantly here, but they did start to pull back a little. So I wouldn't get too excited now. They're kind of just staying flat for the time being. But this does at least prove that the very small wallets that are kind of known as the dumb money, they have dropped significantly out of fear of mainly the Coldcard fiasco, but also the strategy sell-offs and the Clarity Act disappointment.
That's really interesting that the retail start selling and the 10 to 10,000 BTC starts buying. That's the
right.
Market dynamics, yeah.
Yeah, and keep in mind, it's not like this sell-off by the really small 0.01 BTC wallets or less have enough coins to actually make these go up. So they're acting independently. I know they look a little inverse to one another at times, but this is a pretty small amount of coins because they just don't hold that many coins overall. But independently, I think a lot of whales looked at the blood in the streets and all of the doubting going on in crypto and said, all right, guys, I think this is our chance. And they started to scoop up and finally accumulate for the first time since really around April when all of that tariff fear was going on. And then they accumulated and the prices went up. So we haven't seen a big boost yet. And it's unfortunate that they've kind of dropped back down over the last 8-9 days. But I'm still optimistic that 70K is more likely than 60K to come next, even though that's a relatively small move in either direction. It just looks like there's a little bit too much FUD right now for things to go down too much further. In other words, there's a much higher floor to where we are now compared to a higher ceiling. So it's like a high floor, high ceiling, which is generally a bullish condition.
Yep, that's true.
And I also wanted to show this. I just put it out a few hours ago. This chart shows the mentions of words like dead, dying, over, ended, ending, or finished in relation to common crypto words like crypto, altcoins, Bitcoin, etc. And generally speaking, when you see big spikes in people talking about crypto being dead or Bitcoin being dead or Ethereum is finished, all sorts of stuff like that, that's when you actually see price bottoms. And you saw a pretty nice signal here. This was a short-term one. This was a great signal in early June. That was kind of when the war fears were still going on a little bit. And
Yep.
I know they are now, but compared to like April, May, June, that's when they were at their biggest. And the late June one here was also a very nice signal. That was a bottom as well. And now we're starting to see a rise again. I wouldn't say this is like a massive spike. That's like a clear-cut, definitive, like sign that people think crypto's dead. But most of the time, even the ones I didn't circle, like this one here, it's generally a good sign that we're going to see some temporary bullish price action going on.
That explains why the price started moving a while back and then it came back down a bit.
Yeah, because it was all, I mean, this was exactly when the Coldcard wallet hacks went public. So of course, everyone's going to say, well, crypto's dead now. And then we suddenly see a buy opportunity. And it lasted about 3 weeks or so. I'm sorry, my mistake, guys. I'm reading. This is actually 1 month earlier. So this was mostly related to just Clarity Act doubts. And I think interest rate talks were high at this point. And then the actual Coldcard hacks happened right about here, which is still somewhat of a spike, but I'd like to see it go maybe just a little bit higher, and that would be a very clear signal.
All right. But does the Clarity Act delay cause any fear that adds on to this?
Yeah, for sure. I think there was definitely a big collective sigh of disappointment when people heard that it wasn't going to go to the next stage right away. There are publications out there that have covered it more than we have. But from what I understand, a lot of people have their doubts that it's ever going to pass due to a delay, which I think is a mistake. I do still think it has hopes, but whenever people hear that there's a stall or things not progressing at the rate that they were expecting, it can cause people to throw their hands up in frustration and just say, well, I guess it's never going to happen. This is a sign that I shouldn't believe in the Clarity Act anymore. So it's kind of just the crypto community getting impatient whenever there's, news that something isn't going at the speed it was supposed to go.
Yeah, I think it can get quite exhausting waiting for the act to get passed.
Yeah, I mean, we've been hearing about it for a little over a year now. It's been rumored and, progressing up the ranks here in the US, and then it just sort of falls flat. That, we have like the US midterms coming up. I think that's the biggest deal that's coming up, and that could shake up the way that the Senate and the House of Representatives are constructed. And once the dust settles from that, that's when we'll probably start to hear some steam pick up about it again.
Yeah, right.
Now, I also put out the trending stories earlier today. These are basically just the top 3 movers that are getting the biggest traction. Obviously, the Trezor data breach was the biggest one. Goldman Sachs buying Neo's investments. And it says, they bought for 2.25 billion, adding about 32 billion AUM and 3 crypto income ETFs tied to Bitcoin and Ethereum, which, by the way, BTC and ETH ETFs have been seeing some encouraging inflows, not big days, but just very minor inflows. I think my theory is a lot more people are trying to get exposure to crypto and ETFs now than ever before, even though they don't really believe in crypto because of the price stalls going on. So it's as a result of that, of people getting away from holding real crypto out of fear, they're putting the little crypto that they still believe in going up into ETFs instead.
That's another channel for traditional TradFi guys to enter,
Yeah, for sure. And we also see down here, there was a story about reporters flagging big on-chain moves in corporate products that briefly spooked markets. Metaplanet moving 5,014 BTC between its own custody addresses. People saw that on chain and feared the worst. But the CEO confirmed that there weren't any coins being sold and holdings still remain at 43,000 Bitcoin. So that was a temporary fear story that turned out to be nothing. But again, anytime we see coins being moved, people may say things are fine and no coins were moved when in fact we find out later they were. So the distrust is so high right now in crypto that no one fully believes what's being told to them these days. That seems to be what the theme of 2026 has been overall.
I think the bear market do that to a lot of people.
Oh yeah. I mean, when everything's bullish, you trust your fellow crypto spokesman a lot more. When things are bearish, you tend to take everything they say with a grain of salt, because why should I listen to this guy when markets are going down?
Yes.
It's a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
I also noted on our platform that we had the largest Morpho net outflow ever. It happened yesterday. 5.59 million Morpho moving off exchanges all at once. Do you track Morpho at all? I know that Maxim, our founder and CEO, is quite interested in it.
We don't track Morpho, but what does it do?
It's what I can say about Morpho is it's somewhat of a new asset still. There are people on my team who know more about the specifics, so I'm not going to try to generalize it too much, but it does seem to be getting a lot of traction. And it is an ERC20 for what it's worth. So it's right now, based on the stats for it, yeah, it's up to the 53rd ranked market cap, which is actually pretty good. Yeah, it's been scaling up pretty rapidly, especially since just about 6 months ago. It's up about 81%, which is way better than most cryptocurrencies can say throughout this year. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's been getting a larger amount of attention, and I would expect that it cracks the top 50 pretty soon here. Yeah, some big whale activity lately too. I'm just seeing if there's any big anomalies that have happened for it.
Wow.
Look at this drop. Oh yeah, so this makes sense because the supply and exchange has just had its biggest outflow day ever. So you see that the amount of Morpho on exchanges went from 14.2 million down to 8.5 million in one day.
Wow, that's like half of the supply.
Yeah, crazy.
So this is the latest coin that's moving the markets now, moving up the markets.
Yeah, it's definitely one of them. Obviously, Hex had a weird 3x in the past month, as we saw, as well as PulseX, which I don't know much about myself, but yeah, Morpho has definitely been one of the better performers, especially in the 6-month time frame.
Wow. It's another story like Hyperliquid.
Yeah. I've seen the two mentioned in the same sentences many times.
Yeah.
Regarding Bitcoin, by the way, I do want to mention that the long-term MVRV remains well in the negative range, which is a good sign. negative 25% on average is the return of wallets that have been active in the past year. And then wallets in the past 30 days are down just negative 0.7%. But it's at least a good thing that it's back in negative range. Generally, the best times to buy are when both the short and long term are well into the negative, which they once again are right now, even though 30 days barely in the negative.
Mm. For the MVRV 365, because the previous low in the past few cycles is about 40%, if I'm not wrong. So do you foresee that to happen this round?
Yeah, I mean, the longer crypto exists, the less extreme the MVRV waves tend to get, because there are more and more people that are using the network. So that dilutes the average trader returns. But like if we go back a decade, full screen this year, you can see the lowest we ever really got, at least in the past 10 years, was negative 53%.
Yep.
And then we added kind of in the negative 40s here in 22, after the FTX collapse really had things bottom out in November. Yep. And then we had one of our biggest bull runs we've ever seen right after that.
Yep.
So I would say that negative 40-ish is probably right on the cusp of as low as we typically would see on the 1 year, barring something absolutely cataclysmic happening in crypto.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah. So, I think relatively this is probably like a top 15% best time to buy risk-free if you're in it for the long term, just based on the math alone.
Yep. So we are in the area where the risk of getting in right now is much lower than before and after this period once the markets move.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with the way the crowd has kind of turned on crypto over the past couple weeks, really, since the Coldcard hack, I think that really changed things. Along with the fact that whales aren't really dumping anymore. They were showing some signs, at least minor signs of accumulation. And the fact that the average trading returns are as low as they are. Like I said, it's a high floor, high ceiling situation that we're in at the moment.
Yep. I think that's for the audience to take note.
Yeah. But I mean, I did be remiss to not mention the importance of Saylor and strategy. For a lot of people, that really is the only thing that matters, as crazy as that sounds. Yes. Let me just get to the social trends page because I want to show just how much he's being mentioned. I think it's calmed down a little as of late. But yeah, I mean, this was, I think, right when the sell-offs happened. You can see in blue is the social volume, red is the social dominance. That was the spike. We had a second spike on Sunday, and then it calmed down since. But most of his big mentions happened right at the bottom, right? This is when you want to buy, because right now, anytime Saylor's mentioned, it's typically a negative story that people are bringing up because they're mad about crypto and prices not going up. So he's working really well as a counter signal right now. Whenever he's being, whenever he starts trending across social media, it tends to actually show up as a good buy opportunity.
So he becomes the signal to enter the market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So these may not be huge spikes going on right now, but I guarantee he'll be in the news again soon. And when he is, assuming it's for negative reasons, which 95% of the time I think it is right now, that would be a nice counter signal for you to maybe try at least a short-term swing trade.
Yep. I think for us as well, we are thinking of being a little bit more aggressive right now, because the market is entering I think, I don't know where the bottom will be, but we are in an area where we think the risk is really relatively low to enter,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we've been looking at actually.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. And we just have to see how the rest of the summer plays out here. Politically, with the midterms coming up, I think that's going to have a big impact on everything. I also want to mention, since the last time we talked, the inflation or the job report, I should say, came back much lower than expected. There were like expected to be about like 85,000 jobs of growth, and it ended up being like 35,000 of subtraction in jobs. And because of that, in a weird way, crypto viewed that as a bullish sign, because it meant that the chances of interest rates rising going into the next Fed meeting were now very unlikely to happen.
Yep.
Because interest rates don't typically rise when the amount of jobs in the US are plummeting as they are.
Yep.
Whether it's due to AI, I mean, personally, I believe AI has a lot to do with it, but there's plenty of other explanations as well. But that means that, you know, the likelihood of a interest rate rise has dropped pretty substantially, and that's usually good news for both crypto and the stock markets.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, maybe the last thing or last chart I could share is the correlation between the S&P and gold and Bitcoin right now, which shows more and more all-time highs happening for the S&P 500, while Bitcoin has declined, especially this week, down about, what did we see, just 2.5%, 3% or so. Yeah. So the S&P is kind of just doing its thing on its own right now without much correlation from the other two sectors.
Yeah. It's really interesting because after, like you said, after the job reports was out, most of the markets start moving upwards.
Mm-hmm.
That includes our Malaysian equities market. So we are seeing some positive movement as well. And that one was really interesting because the crypto market moved, but it's not as much as the S&P 500.
Yep.
So you can see that is, for the moment, it's not correlated. So I think cryptocurrency, we are still lacking some liquidity in there.
Mm-hmm.
For cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, in fact, that reminds me, I wanted to look at the overall amount of trading volume going on at the moment. I'll just add it to this first tab because we see transaction volume down quite a bit. There was that brief spike. This was exactly when the Coldcard wallet hacks occurred, but from a volume perspective, yeah, it's just continuing to decline over time.
Yeah.
Going back a full year. Wow. I mean, you can just draw a nice straight line.
Yeah.
As it just dips and dips more and more.
Yep.
So you're right. Trading volume, liquidity, it is an issue right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in a weird way, despite showing these underwhelming metrics, there is a solid bullish case being made right now that I think has some legitimacy to it. And it's really just about whether any bullish minor spike, let's say Bitcoin goes up 5% in the next week, would that be enough to start a domino effect and bring people back in? I don't know. I think there's so much distrust at the moment, not even just in crypto, but from a lot of financial markets and politics here in the US, regardless of what side of the fence people are on politically. It's really a battle of what information you can trust here in 2026, more now than ever.
Yeah, that's true. And for the market, because we are in talks with different experts some of the technical experts out there is saying that we are going through the end of the 4-year cycle. So if history were to play itself out, then we might see that it's gonna go to the next cycle. So
Yeah.
I mean, so far there's some truth in that, but although we can't be 100% sure, but so the technical expert, we have a technical expert in equities tracker, so he is also seeing that cycle. So he's saying that we may be at the end of the bearish cycle. So let's see how it plays out. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And I look forward to hearing more about how markets are looking from equities trackers perspective. And we'll be in touch between now and the next time we talk, I'm sure.
Yeah. The insights from sentiment is always great.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
I'm looking forward to next time, my friend, and always great to catch up
Yep.
with you and talk markets.
Yep. I really enjoy doing that too. All right. Okay. So that's everything. Thanks, Brian, for coming on. And your insights has been really helpful. I believe that our audience will learn something from this every time.
That's the hope, my friend.
Yeah.
Cheers. We'll talk to you soon.
Cheers. See ya.